wonderful round of applause, please, for my good friend James Cunningham. Isn't he been wonderful? What a funny guy. I've been to a lot of programs with James Cunningham, and there was this one time he offered me to go to a program, to go and watch a professor speak about this thing called happiness economics. And so when we went out there, I couldn't help but notice that this particular professor was suggesting that people who were very happy in life, extremely happy in life, were those who had sex once a week. I was astonished. So I said, I gotta go check this thing out. So as he talked about happiness economics, the relationship between people and the money and during good and bad times, I couldn't help but notice that towards the end of his program, he actually wanted to prove this point. So here it came. And so as I began to giggle quietly to myself, I watched him go on to say, listen, folks, let's prove the point that if you were to have sex once per week, you were a happier person. So he invited the audience, and they were all sitting just like you are, and they're all sitting, pretty sophisticated. And he says, if you have sex once per week, please stand. Well, they were. And their whole bodies told you that they were happier people. Now, for the remainder of the folks that were sitting down in this room, I couldn't help but notice that the professor went on to say, for those who've only had sex, let's say, just inside once a month, please stand. And here's how they look. They kind of, like, what are you going to do? But they stood. But the professor couldn't help but notice that sitting in the front seat corner was this one man, and he sat sort of beaming, and he was on just the edge of his seat, beaming. And he says, sir, you haven't stood yet. Do you not have sex once a week? He goes, nope. He goes, sir, do you not have sex once a month? He says, nope. He goes, well, sir, this is preposterous. You're sitting there so beaming. What is with you? He goes, I have sex once a year. He says, once a year, and you're so happy? He goes, that's right. I have sex once a year because tonight's the night. And you know, it's amazing to watch this kind of response happen in this world where we don't have life show up like tonight's the night anymore. And you have to ask yourself, what happened? You know, Zig Ziglar once said that we were born to win, but yet we've been conditioned to lose. And so here we are in a time and an era where you've got unprecedented levels of multi-trillion-dollar bailouts, media fallouts, and headline new doubts. You've got things that are generating an environment that's now conditioning us to feel like we're behind the 8 ball, so to speak. And as a result, life isn't showing up like tonight's the night. So what's gone on? Here's the thing. When you go to presentations like this around the world, you'll notice that a lot of the speakers, like those who've adorned the stage, all are championing the same very thing. That we all want to change, but yet we don't follow through, and here's the reason why. We spend a lot of time looking for solutions for the effects of not making the change, rather than going to the source, the cause for why we're not making those changes. Said a different way, like diets, for example. Going on a diet solves the effects of not making the change, rather than actually going to the source of why you haven't made that change. So these times are a lot different, and as a result, what I want to invite you for the next few minutes that we've got together, and the short time we do, is to relay to you the message that your state is being held hostage by the media, by headlines, and for the circumstances that are engulfing our world today. And we have a choice. We have a solution, and it's all within you. So here's how the presentation is going to go. As Michael Hutchison, a wonderful presentation coach, would want me have say to you, is we have 3 goals. 1, we're going to get a chance to get to know each other. You get to know a little bit about me, I get to know a little bit about you, especially you. More importantly, we're going to end up walking through a series of exercises, videos, and music that's going to get you all up and on your feet. So I want to ask in advance for permission to have you all move around. Now I'm going to start taking on a little bit of Dr. Mehmet Oz's education, which is that movement induces digestion, or induces appetite. So with your permission, we're going to do that. And the third and most important point is that we're going to have some fun doing it today. So with that being said, I'm going to start off with a video. And as I cue it up, I want you to look for something. I want you to look for the state the people who adore the screen are in. If you were to sum it up in one word, what would it be as you watch it for the next couple minutes? So let's begin.
It can be hard to know when you need a new job. As a rule, if you hate going to work every day, it may be time. If you hate going to work and your coworkers don't respect you,
hey, dummy,
it may be time. If you hate going to work, your coworkers don't respect you,
dummy,
and you always wish you were somewhere else, it may be time. If you hate going to work, your coworkers don't respect you. You wish you were somewhere else, and you cry constantly. It may be time. If you hate going to work, no one respects you. You wish you were somewhere else. You cry constantly, and you daydream of punching small animals.
Oh dear.
It may be time. If you hate going to work, no one respects you. You wish you were somewhere else. You cry constantly. You daydream of punching small animals, and you sit next to this guy. It may be time. If you make loads of money, it may not be time. But if you make loads of money, you hate going to work, no one respects you. You wish you were somewhere else. You cry constantly. You daydream of punching small animals, and you sit next to this guy. It's probably time, as a rule.
So can we all gather closer? Oh, okay, there we go, volume now. See, you folks at the top row are lucky. You guys. All right, everyone from the back, come forward. Yeah, let's go back to the mic. The majority rules. Can you just have the mic back up here, please? So this is the moment I want a koala bear. Drinking my gold, having a koala bear. Yeah, we're gonna go back to the mic. Sorry. That's okay. It's a great thing in my contract I get bonus for adversity. That's all good. So the reality is that when we first started off, I asked you the question, when you see the video, to describe in one word, what state were those people in? What state? What would it be? Disempowered? Okay, it's a family event, sir. I can't use that word, but yes. Not in a good place, right? So the reality is that in this particular case, when we look at the state of mind that people can be in, we know that state's important. Now, a state, for those of you who are making notes, a state is basically a pattern of neurological processes, millions and millions and millions of them, all comprised and triggered by any one particular thing. You see, the reality is that when we look at what Marcus Aurelius had to say back in his day, and he said was brilliant. If you are distressed by anything external, like a microphone, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your own estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. At any moment. So whatever is happening on out there, all that matters is what happens on in here. It's all about how you process it, how you filter it, what you make it mean. So the reality is that for the time we have together, my goal is to cause a bit of a transformation, a small one, in the way you relate to and get in peak state. To summarize the last video, those are what we would call disempowered states, with the exception of the man who did look a little bit like Adrian Smith drinking gold. So the reality is that what we want to do is share with you what access to more would look like. So if you're taking notes, by all means, this would be a great time to do this. There's three real important points to describing state. Of course, first we'd have to talk a bit about state to appreciate perspective and things like triggers. So why don't we just delve right into it? In the first part, a matter of state. In order to really understand how we walk this world as somewhat of a byproduct of the environment in which we live in, the quality of our behavior and communication is essential. Our behavior is a result of the state we're in. You see, what and how you picture things, how and what you say things to yourself and to others describing circumstances, both external and internal, really begin to produce the behavior you're in, and the behavior you're in produces your state. So if we don't watch those things, then the state has us. The second point is that you've got to really watch the use of your physiology and personal energy. What does that mean? Well, using physiology and personal energy comes down to what Tony Robbins said, the champion of this work. He said when talking a bit about mentors and coaches, great parents, fathers and mothers, he said they're like great leaders, powerful leaders. He said they're the ones who can represent the circumstances of life to themselves and to others in a way that signals success to the nervous system in spite of seemingly hopeless external stimuli. Real stupid stuff. That in spite of all of that, you're able to pull through. What that's called is perspective. And perspective is really important because it comes down to two parts: content and context. You're going to hear after me today one of the most amazing men I've ever met, an icon of perspective, Christopher Gardner, where he can take content, whatever's going on, and have it mean something else, and context and have it actually occur for him differently. For those of you who saw Pursuit of Happiness, the movie. Said a different way, in more even simpler terms, it's like the old story of taking lemons and turning them into lemonade. When you take lemons, which is the content, and you convert into lemonade, it's the context, you've got a business opportunity. So the other side of power of perspective would come down to reframing and refiring. Be possibility driven. Now, what's funny about possibility driven or being able to reframe and refire, the reality is that you've got to really take a look at children. Children are probably by far the best sources of life's simplest lessons. Not so long ago, I was sitting in a park, and I was sitting just on a bleacher behind a home plate of a diamond, and I couldn't help but notice that there was this little child playing with a bat and ball. For those of you who've got children, you'll understand the story. Remember when you were quite young and saw children perhaps your age do the same thing. Well, with a bat in one hand, the ball in the other, I watched him go on to throw a ball for himself to hit out of the park. So as I sat in the bleachers, he didn't know I was there. He would throw the ball in the air, and as it was in the air, he would cry out at the top of his lungs, "I'm the greatest baseball player that ever lived," and swing at the ball and miss. Undaunted, this child would pick up the ball, dig his heels into the sand, right over home plate, throw it up in the air, take a deep step back, and by the time he would swing, cry out, "I'm the greatest baseball player that ever lived," and swing and yet miss again. He'd pick up the ball, dust himself off, throw it up in the air even higher, took a step back, took a big swing, cried out, "I'm the greatest baseball player that ever lived," swung and missed yet again. Now, his back was now to the field, as mine is to you, and he noticed me, and he was embarrassed. And here he looked at me, and I looked at him to me, I to him. And you know what he said? "Wow, what a pitcher." And all I could do was agree. So the reality is that here we are, we look at children as wonderful providers of lessons, whereby reframing a situation that might look like a very bad thing and turning it into a very good thing. If you're able to be driving down the street and it's Robson Street and someone cuts you off and flips you the bird, guess what you can say amongst many other things?